I'm Jimmy Malone. I'm the writer and co-producer for My Name is Alex. So the film My Name is Alex, it actually started with the title. I guess it actually starts with me, with my recovery. I'm in recovery. I have just over 4.5 years of sobriety. And the line, my name is Jimmy, my name is whatever. People who have any familiarity with AA, that's synonymous with the program of AA. And so I love the idea of that title as kind of a tribute to this fellowship of people in recovery, because I go to AA. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for that program. But also it's a very personal story, not just for me, but for this character that we meet, Alex, because you meet him in the worst time of his life. And so what better way to introduce that than with an introductory line like, my name is Alex. The idea of him as a nurse's aide, I like that because it's a very emotionally involved job, and it's a often thankless job, and it's almost always not a pleasant job. But most jobs in healthcare, nobody's there for the money. Even the people that get paid a lot, nobody's there for the money. So it's this idea of somebody who takes care of people for a living, and he's really good at taking care of people for a living, but he hasn't taken care of himself. And that's very much ripped from my pre-sober days, for sure. As far as the other characters, there's some sporadic history sprinkled in there. There's some direct lines and there's some direct actions that I just took from my long-term memory and put them onto my computer. The director, Corey, helped me a lot with Roommate because there's a lot of darker elements, and we didn't want to bog down the story with anything that was depressive or like, why am I watching this? In a lot of ways, he's not a likable guy. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about alcoholics and what an alcoholic looks like. And they say in the program the 4 warning signs for a relapse are hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. So, whenever one of those strong emotions is evoked in Alex, that triggers the appearance of the figure. So I got to give my wife Anna credit for kind of helping me to appreciate what a strong female character looks like and what it doesn't look like. And so one of the things with the Deborah character is I wanted to introduce somebody to Alex that he has a lot of chemistry with, and it certainly can't be ruled out that they wouldn't have gotten together in the future or, just been friends or whatever. But I definitely wanted to make a point of it not being a love interest. And I love when movies pass the Best test. You're watching this movie and there's this sad guy and then he meets a sad girl and they just hit it off and that's the end. I think it comes down to you're not giving the viewer enough credit for putting elements together. So I wanted the Deborah character to be somewhat of a parallel for him, but also, she has a way of breaking his walls down, and not in sort of a romantic, I have a crush on her sort of way, but more of just, she sees him for the first time when he is not aware of it. So, which was the director Corey's idea, which was really interesting. And so when they first meet, it's not like this magical stars love at first sight moment. She has a reason why she thinks he's kind of a cool dude. He stopped, and that's funny. People don't do that. And so when they do meet on the corner and she says, thank you, I think that he is in his own head. He was not expecting this pretty girl to talk to him. So I think that just the way that character is, and also because of the way that the actor who played Alex Croy, just the control over his emotional range was unbelievable. So he's a little shy, he's a little embarrassed about it, he's a little bashful. I mean, there's definitely storytelling points to have her in there, but another big part of it is to kind of break up what's going on in his head. And I think that, part of Deb is a distraction for Alex, and obviously plays a much larger role at the end. He has that scene at the diner with the other guy from the AA meeting, and he takes this long bike ride, and he's just in a very pensive, very introspective state of mind, and just hearing Deborah like drunkenly say something goofy was enough to like break his walls down. Crystal was great, and their chemistry on set was amazing. I know the casting director, Maggie, she had a huge role. Maggie sort of had to build up this character of Deb. Like, there were some descriptions written in to the script, but that gave Maggie a lot of freedom to kind of decide, like, who do I want this character to be? You know, we knew who she needed to be for him, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, we know who she needs to be in general. So it's like, where do we think she would work? And then, you know, we can use that as like a starting off pointer, like, you know, what would she be into, or, you know, whatever. So kind of building this character from the ground up, and I think we decided that she was like an assistant manager at an American Eagle or something, you know. So yeah, it was great. They're not at the same like juncture in life, but it's not that far off, which is why I think it's great that they meet on a street corner. That was not by accident. I've heard Corey use the word serendipitous a couple of times with how this movie came together, and I don't know if we've ever actually sat down and connected the dots, but it basically looks like this. One of my oldest friends lives in Chicago. His now fiance is a working cinematographer in Chicago, and she has done a lot of work for Corey Gilbert, who owns P3 Media Works, a production company in Chicago. You know, they have a good working relationship. He's taking care of her. She's traveled a lot with his company. And so Norm knew that when I moved to Chicago that I was like thirsty for experience. I just needed to get onto film sets. My friend Norm's fiance, Sarah, brought me on in camera department on a short film that was directed by Corey Gilbert. And it was an overnight shoot. We had 12 hours to do it. It was one location. And so I got to see Corey at work. That was fantastic. He works fast and he works serious. Not to say that he's unapproachable or he's intimidating. You can just tell that he knows what he wants. And the night that I was with camera, I spent a lot of time with this guy named Harry Bauer, who is the one who wrote the story for the short that Corey was directing. And it was called Delivery, by the way. So I left and I realized that I had left a LED like hot shoe light in Corey's gear. So I drove down to Corey's studio, P3 Media Works, and Anna makes the joke that I left that light there on purpose. So I get the light. When you're directing something with more than 15 people and you have 12 hours to do it, you don't have time to chit chat, which I would hope that he wouldn't have time to chit chat. So we're like just talking about movies, and I think Sarah had told Corey that I had a movie podcast. So something that I've always done whenever I go to somebody's house for the first time, the first thing I do is go to their movies. And I love to look through their collection because I feel like it's a really great way to get an idea of like the mean average of this person. You know, you can tell a lot about somebody by the movies that they have. So Corey came on to the podcast and I said, if you're going to come all the way out here, pick a movie. Pick a movie that's like meaningful, 10 years old, 20 years old, whatever. So he picked Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, which is a fantastic movie. It's a movie that's on its most superficial layer is great. And you can dive as deep as you want to go. If you want to pick apart the opening dance number and the intentional color patterns that are there, you can do that, but you don't have to. So we talked about that movie, but we also talked about, you know, a lot of other movies. And then he came back for another one. And then he came to the house where me and my wife live. And I have a kind of a home podcast set up. So the night that we did that podcast, I was probably about a week after I had finished a working draft, rough draft of My Name is Alex. And so, you know, by this time we had done 3 podcasts together and talked about movies for hours, mostly David Fincher. So he was intrigued. I think he knew that I didn't drink at that point and, you know, whatever. So he was like, yeah, I'd like to take a look at that. And so I think for me it wasn't a question because I felt like I knew him because of like our movie bonding. It's such a personal story. I would not have given it to the first person that was like interested in you know, production with this. So yeah, a couple days later, Corey called me up and he said, hey, can you come down to the studio? And came down in the studio and he said, tell me about My Name is Alex. So the way that the full circle to complete that here, the podcast that we had recorded was done at a studio that was owned by a guy named Chris Johnson. And Chris Johnson met Corey that night when we did Do the Right Thing, and they were talking about music. And Chris was trying to get into film composition more. He'd had a little bit of history. And Chris ended up scoring the movie that I had met Corey on, Delivery. And he wrote the sound, and he wrote the score for My Name is Alex from scratch. And then we ended up filming My Name is Alex 1 year to the day of Delivery. There was a whole Indiegogo campaign that we put together that was, I think, another really strong bonding movement between the two of us. Because we both put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that. And Corey opened a shared Google Drive. It was like December 12th or something. And then we filmed that the end of June. So we had a very healthy period of pre-production. And so by the time that we started to get close, there was nothing, I was not nervous, and Corey had made it clear that he wanted me to be an integral part of the production. And that he wanted to tell the story appropriately. He wanted to tell it in a way that was true to the story that I was trying to get across. And so there was a lot of things that changed, but I don't feel like I ever compromised on anything. Like, no choice that anybody in cast or crew made that I didn't agree with. There were some things that maybe like one of us didn't see right away, and we would explain it. But Corey and I spent a lot of nights on the phone shooting ideas back and forth, and it was a lot of like totallys. It was a lot of like absolutely. It was a lot of like, that's awesome.